So to start with, bring yourself over onto your side, and you can pop a little pillow underneath your head and curl your limbs up so you're in like a little fetal position, a little curled in, quiet fetal position. You could even get a blanket and lay the blanket on you, because again, that's changing the external environment. But when we're in these moments, it's really nice to kind of compound the parasympathetic experience. So when we come into a little curled side-lying position, this is going to elicit more so a parasympathetic experience of being in our bodies. Now, that's not always true. Sometimes for people, they come to lie on the side, curled up, and it feels not comfortable, like I don't want to be here. But as a general rule, going into a little curl with the eyes dropped, with the limbs bent, with back muscles lengthened, curled away from the world, so we're not paying attention, and we close our eyes and we go into that little womb-like state. This is a parasympathetic position to rest in. And you might have memories of when you've been in this position and you've really felt like you just had to curl into this position, maybe even pull the doona over your head and disappear completely from the world. And you really feel the body kind of going into this curl. Now, in this position, we could notice our breathing. And you might notice that it just sort of spontaneously slows down. That's simply by coming into this position with the back elongated and the limbs curled up. You just start to almost sigh. There's this kind of letting go, and the out breath becomes a little elongated. The in-breath is coordinated by the sympathetic nervous system, and the out-breath is coordinated by the parasympathetic nervous system. So if I sigh, and let that out-breath just really start to be the breath that is present, that is where my attention lies, or I elongate that out-breath, or I just linger with it, float on it a little. That's going to make a really big difference. Roll over onto your back and have your legs wide and your arms wide overhead, so you make a kind of starfish shape. One of the things that's quite interesting, we can tell if we've been really sympathetic through the day, is that actually when we are asleep, we find our limbs overhead. It's literally like in the night, we'll wake up with our limbs overhead. Or we might even go to sleep and we have to have our arms up. We don't have the capacity to fold them in and get really kind of curled in. And what's happening here is we kind of got that extension that's still in the body. But when we lie down with our arms and our legs extended, it's going to be a much more sympathetic position. Now, sometimes at the end of the day, we're going to collapse on the floor and be like, oh. And that is going to be the start of us relaxing. But actually, we're still in a sympathetic shape. So as you lie here, you might find, oh, this I feel more comfortable with, that big open shape with my arms and legs spread wide. Now, if you were here to squeeze the muscles and to stretch into the limbs and to breathe in, you would be kind of waking up the system, which is often what we do in the morning. We stretch and we push out into the edges of our skin and we squeeze the muscles. And we take that beautiful breath in. So get a sense of how this floor position, which is still relatively parasympathetic, how we can make it sympathetic by squeezing the muscles, by breathing in, by opening the eyes and looking around the room. And we can sigh, but we are kind of hanging out on the end of the in-breath. Stretching, opening, widening. And then we fall out of it with a kind of collapsed out breath. So take a moment to choose either curled into that little beautiful fetal with the eyes closed or looking down and the fingers and the limbs all kind of bent up and just such a quiet little space. And really let your head tip and drop to the back of the neck, right up to where the neck meets the skull is all lengthened and the chest is really soft and the belly's all wrinkly and soft because it's all curled in on itself, and the toes and the feet also feel really beautiful and folded and lazy. And you could even imagine that the blood starts to come out of the brain, out of the muscles, and it comes back into the belly organs. And you can let out a long, slow sigh. Or you might be on your back and you're really enjoying squeezing and stretching and breathing in. Or maybe you want to do a little bit of one and then a little bit of the other. Because actually, there's something nice about being in one for a little bit, but then actually you want to be in the next one. Come over onto your back if you're not on your back and bend your legs so that your feet are on the floor and your feet are kind of wide and comfortably resting. So you can feel like you've got legs that are useful. And you can have your arms out to your side a little bit so they give a bit of space for your shoulder blades and your armpits to feel like they can breathe and move. And flexion is parasympathetic and extension is sympathetic. Getting small and curling into ourselves is parasympathetic, and extending out into the space is sympathetic. We can do something that balances the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, and that's rotation. So very gently start to roll your legs and your feet and your pelvis a little bit from one side to the other. And feel as you roll your pelvis and you shift the weight from one buttocks and one low back, that you could start to also feel that the shoulders, the neck, the chest and the head could also turn a little bit. And that the head might start to follow the pelvis, or the head might start to turn in an opposite direction to the pelvis. But just find a pace of movement that feels good in your body to do. Beautiful. And then see if you could sense, and you might need to move your head more or less depending on this. So you might feel like, actually, I need to keep the head a little bit more still to find this. Or you might need to let it roll a little bit more. But could you start to move your legs from one side to the other and move them at such a pace that you feel that it actually brings on a parasympathetic experience within your nervous system? That the swaying, slow, gentle, languid pace that you choose, it actually starts to lull or shepherd your nervous system into a quiet, relaxed, parasympathetic state. That you go, oh, this is the pace of movement where I feel the blood comes out of my brain and I just feel just kind of maybe even daydream a little. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing I need to do. I can just fall into the feeling of my flesh and of that beautiful experience of rolling across the floor. Oh, and my breath gets slow, and maybe even there's a sigh. Oh, I feel the blood coming out of the muscles, and there's a softness, folding feeling in my body. And then see what it would be like to move in a way that's more sympathetic, where there's more tone and activation of the muscles, where maybe the pace is quick or sharp. And again, your head may want to move less or more. How could you kind of rouse the system into a little bit of play, a little bit of excitement? Woo, woo, woo! That it could be rhythmical, fun, and fast. That you feel like in the pace that you choose, the blood in the body is starting to pump a little faster. Woof, woof, woof. And the in-breath becomes seemingly more important. And maybe the movement gets smaller, or maybe it gets bigger. How could this movement of rolling the pelvis and legs be more sympathetic? Maybe you push with the legs more, so it's more dynamic and muscular. Vroom, 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 vroom. Maybe you have a song in your head that you're kind of dancing to, a little bit of floor dancing. And then fall back to it being a parasympathetic movement. And play. How can you shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic and parasympathetic to sympathetic? Just by the way that you squeeze the muscles and push the floor, or you change the pacing, or you breathe out or in intentionally. Beautiful. Let your legs slowly come to rest down on the floor and let your limbs lay gently beside you. One of the ways that we can balance the nervous system is by balancing the breathing pacing. So just notice as you're breathing to start with, if you feel that your out-breath or your in-breath is more dominant, is a little longer, If we were to have a longer out breath, which we can intentionally choose to slow and soften and extend that out breath, we would be more parasympathetic. If we choose to shorten and draw in the in-breath and speed it up a little bit, we're going to bring our system into being more sympathetic. We're going to send that blood up to the brain, into the muscles. But if we were to see that we could actually breathe in and breathe out, and that the pauses at either end of the in and the out breath were equal, that one was not more kind of dominant than the other, we would start to harmonize the nervous system. So you might like to count. You might like to have 3, 4, 5 counts for an in-breath, 3, 4, 5 counts for an out-breath, and 1 or 2 counts at either end. Choose not what you think you should do, but choose what it is that feels like a good way for you to be curious about finding harmony. And see if you can find that you can breathe in and breathe out, and no one breath pattern is more dominant than the other. That you can breathe in, pause, and breathe out, and pause for the exact same amount of time. Now you might find in making that transition to that equalizing that it's not perfect. So please do not get attached to it being perfect. The more that we come into that experience that it is more or less equal, we are bringing our nervous system into a more or less harmonizing balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic. And it doesn't matter if it's 60-40 or 55-45 as we're heading toward finding some kind of 50-50. Allow your breath to simply find its rhythm again that is comfortable for you, with whichever pattern of longer or shorter, in-breath, out-breath, pausing longer at one end. And we're going to do just a little bit of breath work that is around the nostrils. So you might like to come to sit, or you might like to stay on your back, whatever feels comfortable, and you change your mind as we're going, okay? So you're going to bring your fingertips, your thumb and your index finger up to just very gently pinch your nose, okay? I'll talk you through this as we're going. But what I would like you to do is to take a little breath in and then just very gently close off the nostrils. And as you close off the nostrils, you're going to gently pause the breath. But I would like you to pause the breath in a way that is not holding tension in your body. You release your fingers, you breathe out each time you feel that you need to. But we're going to repeat this pattern of breathing in, placing the fingers to cover the nostrils, pausing the breath. But the mouth is soft, the eyes are soft, the throat is soft, the chest is soft, the belly is soft. So we don't need to tense and hold the breath with muscular effort. The breath is simply just paused. And then we breathe out whenever it is that we feel that that is a good time to do so. And then very gently start to roll your head a little bit if you're lying on your back, or if you're sitting, just start to tip your head, drop your head, roll the head a little bit so that you have this paused breath. The mouth is soft, the chest is soft, the belly is soft, the hip joints are soft. And then we just add a little roll of the head. Breathing out when it feels like it's a good thing to breathe out. You can take a few breaths between each little experience. But as you are slowly doing this, you might find that the way or the length of the time that you can be with that paused breath starts to increase. And this is a wonderful little practice for building up the carbon dioxide in the system. That actually, as you are building up the carbon dioxide, you are doing lots of beautiful neurochemical work in the nervous system, in the brain. And one of the things that we want to do over a longer period of time is build up the capacity to pause the breath for even longer. Now, what we will also do is we will do the other end. We will pause at the other end. So this time, gently allow for an exhale, and then gently bring the fingers to the nose, pause, gently roll the head a little bit. But now we're on the out breath, and we're pausing on the out breath. The mouth is soft, the shoulders and the neck are soft, the muscles of the face and the scalp is soft, chest, the diaphragm, the belly, the pelvic floor is soft. That the pausing of breath is not an increase of tension, but simply a soft, quiet moment where not much is happening. And yet so much is happening neurochemically. Again, we just release the fingers and take the breath in whenever it is that we feel that that's a good time to do. Don't try to hold the breath as if it is a competition with yourself. Just simply feel the kinesthetic experience of when you would like to next breathe in, and that is it. You might notice as we are playing with either the pausing at the top of the in or the pausing at the end of the out, that one of those feels more comfortable, more able to create an internal shift that is pleasant. So you might swap back to doing it at the top of the in breath, or you might continue with this at the end of the out breath. Just a few more of these little pausings, allowing the nervous system to readjust to a new kind of experience of the carbon dioxide and the oxygen balance. And at some point you can just let that all fall away and just return to breathing in a way that is actually really natural for you, and it doesn't matter what the pacing is, in or out. Now, whether you're sitting or whether you're lying, can you bring your hands either, if you're lying, onto your belly, or if you're sitting, let them come onto your knees. And again, you might change the position that you're in so that you can do this in a comfortable way. You might even like to be lying on your side and the hands are kind of curled in close to you, or on your tummy and the hands are on the floor. The hands are a really good indication of the nervous system. And when we change how we use our hands, we change our brain and we change the nervous system. And in Feldenkrais, we have this beautiful little movement we call the bell hand. Now, the bell hand is sometimes a funny little word because it doesn't necessarily make lots of sense. But it might be that you could think of it as a jellyfish, or seaweed floating in the ocean. But could you start to bring the tips of your fingers a little bit toward each other and then a little bit away from each other, bending softly in all of the tiny little joints of your hands? That there's 27 little bones in here and 33 joints. And that you could start to find a pacing of movement with your hands that feels comforting, that feels like it slows your nervous system down and brings that parasympathetic nervous system into experience. So it feels like you are calming yourself just by the gentle ebbing and flowing of your fingers. Letting the fingers be soft. Folding them in. Feeling the sensitivity of the hands, that they are hands that love to feel and sense things. That the skin is so sensitive and so gentle and comforting that you might be feeling the fabric on your tummy, on your legs, on the floor, and really getting into the sense of that, as well as the sense of the hands moving. Let's add to this a little bit more parasympathetic experiences, but we're going to bring in another area, which is the mouth. So get a sense of your tongue, your lips, and all the muscles around your mouth. And can you soften your tongue, let it spread in your mouth? Almost like your hands and your mouth are sensing together. Sensing the cavity of your mouth, the softness of your lips, making little small puffs with the lips, little unfoldings of the tongue, little lickings of the tongue. You can feel you're kind of sensing the wetness and the saliva in the mouth, maybe swallowing a little bit. Maybe the hands touch each other, or they run across the floor or across your tummy. And then just getting a sense of your eyes, and the little eyeballs like soft plums settling back in your eye sockets, and the muscles of the eyes. They just relax. When we are in a parasympathetic state, the muscles of the eyes are relaxed and the eyeballs themselves fall back. They really settle back in the socket as we settle back into our bodies, as we get soft. The eyes get soft. And the eyes start to see light and shade and beauty. They feed back to the brain. Oh, the colour, the movement of light, the movement of the curtains in the wind. Allow yourself to either keep your eyes closed, because that can be very parasympathetic, just to let the eyes drop into the sockets and really feel the eye muscles relax, or just to look at the space like a baby might look at it, with the lights and the shadows and the reflections, and the movement of the trees and the wind. Just even looking at your hands, folding and floating like little bits of seaweed, dancing in the breeze. And the tongue is soft, and we feel the flesh, and the skin of our body is warm, and we might even give ourselves a little rub, sliding the hands across the skin. Really waking up all of those beautiful nerve endings in the skin that tell the brain that we're relaxed. We're cuddly and snuggly, running across the belly, the breasts, shoulders and the neck, using your hands as if softening the skin, softening the muscles across your thighs. And that there's a kind of pacing to the movement of the hands that relaxes us, softens us, makes us feel quiet and gentle, snuggly, makes us feel warm and loving. You might come to rest your hands intentionally on your belly or on your chest, and you find where is a comforting place to rest your hands. You go, yeah, when I rest here, I feel relaxed, I feel comforted. And there might be a few little places that you go, yeah, here, that feels nice. And the lips are soft and the muscles of the eyes are soft. And we go, this is being parasympathetic. This is being soft and gentle and feeling comforted. Giving ourselves a little rub just because it feels good to do that. And that might lead to a little stretch or a little roll. And if it's soft, it's parasympathetic, or you might stretch out a little bit into sympathetic and then come away again from it and come back to a softening parasympathetic touch where the hands fold and flop and caress. And the mouth is soft and juicy and full, and the tongue can sweep and the eyes can fall and rest. And we sigh out. And then maybe there's even a little hum. Because making sound is very parasympathetic as well. Bum, 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 bum. La, 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 la. That you could sing a little song to yourself as you gently stroke. And you can let that go and just rest. And just feel what that feels like to rest in your body in this deeply parasympathetic state. Bend your legs and bring your feet up to standing. If you're not on your back, come onto your back. And just start to squeeze your hands to make a kind of a fist, a kind of strong activation of your hands. And then just very gently, you can bend at the elbows, but start to kind of wrap your hands on the ground like you're playing a drum. Ba-da-boom, 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 ba-da-boom. Opening and closing the hands as you like and just thumping. Ba-da-boom, ba-da-boom, ba-da-boom. And then just start to ba-da-boom, 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 your feet, like you're stamping your feet. And you start to kind of wake the body up with this kind of rhythmical bumping of the feet, bumping of the arms. Maybe you're bumping your elbows, actually. You think, actually, I want to bump my elbows and not bump my fists. Maybe you want to actually let your legs go long and kind of bang your legs with them being long, but start to add in a kind of rhythmical pounding and thumping and bumping, almost like you're having a little bit of a wrestle with yourself, a little bit of a wrestle with the ground, or almost a kind of a little, and you can use your breath and use your voice and use the blood in the muscles to thump, almost like having a little kind of tantrum, like, oh, it's been a bruh. And then just roll to your side and come up to standing. And we're going to do a little bit of this more active movement in standing. And as you're coming up to standing, see if you can kind of keep that kind of rhythmical, like, boom, or shaking, or squeezing, and rolling around and wrestling, and just going, okay, maybe arms up. Like, how would I bring energy into my body? Shaking, pushing, reaching, pulling. Wriggling, that's it, squeezing, pounding the hands, boom, 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 shaking the fingers out. And that you could start to breathe in intentionally. You could kind of pull that breath in. Oh, yes, good idea, Milan. Head to bed once you're relaxed. And how do you actually kind of bring on that sympathetic energy? Welcome it in. Yes. Come on. Let's get busy. Let's get active. Bring it on. Bring on the activity. Bring on the muscular activity. Bring on the activity in the eyes. And the eyes are forward and they're looking about and they're darting. And the mouth, maybe the mouth is like, rah, it's active and the muscles are strong. You could even stick your tongue out. Rah. Rah, rah. Get active, get sympathetic. Woo! It's great to be here. Maybe let out a little kind of like, woo! 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 Ha ha! A little laugh, a little shout into the space. Woo! And breathe in and bring it on. And then you just let that fall away. Now we're going to either sit or stand, and you can choose. But I want you, we're going to do just to be comfortable, but also to kind of you'll feel where you want to be. We're going to do a little activity which I call bring it on. Okay, so we've sort of done a little bit of that bring it on, but that's when I've got a challenge ahead of me. I've got a function, I've got a party I've got to go to. It's Christmas time, and we go, you know what? I'm going to bring my internal state up to that level of activity. I'm going to bring it on. So I want you to kind of bring yourself imaginatively into the space that you are maybe needing to step into. And I want you to kind of almost like an electricity kind of wave, squeeze your muscles and feel that kind of frisson, the kind of anxiety, the excitement of that experience. And almost like you're sort of almost pulling in that sort of energetic experience and pulling it into your flesh of like, bring it on. And if I'm driving somewhere and I'm feeling really like, oh, I don't really want to go, I feel sleepy, I don't want to talk to people, I'll hold on to the steering wheel and I'll squeeze it and I'll squeeze my muscles and I'll be like, I'll breathe in, bring it on, here we go. And I'm pulling that activity and that sort of excited energy into my body, and I'm squeezing the muscles and I'm sending the blood to the brain, sending the blood to the muscles. My eyes get big and wide. Bring it on. And then I can relax again. So again, like last time I was saying, we don't want to vilify the sympathetic. It's fantastic. We want to bring the system up to meet the challenge sometimes, knowing that we can bring the system down if we want to. So I can be turning up to a party and be like, I am way too agitated, way too much movement, way too much excitement. How could I calm this system down? By being a little bit more flexed and dropping my eyes, by putting my hands somewhere comforting. So let's just take a little moment to come back to the computer and just to come to sit in the computer, or not in it, well, sort of in it. And I want you to find a place where you can put your hands on your chest, around your heart even. Or you could put your hands on the back of your neck. Or you might put your hands on your forehead or over your eyes or on your belly. And just spend a little time here and just see if you can feel that you can really connect with you. You can let that breath out. Maybe you round your back a little bit. Or maybe you want to kind of scratch your scalp and wake up the skin and come forward. Maybe you want to stretch a little bit. How could you change your internal state either into the parasympathetic by calming down or into the sympathetic a little more that feels like that's a good place. I want to be here in this experience. Exactly. I can move my fingers. I could use my breath and my voice. I could use my hands, either scratching or pounding, banging and clapping, squeezing, moving or quietening and stilling. Then I go, I can change my internal state really simply by changing my posture, by simply looking down. As soon as I look down, my whole system is going to change. I could be in a conversation with someone. I could just change my breathing. They wouldn't even know I have changed it. Or I could be feeling really sluggish and like, oh, I've got to move. I am like, my brain's not working properly. If I just stay sitting here, I can't even think. So I'm going to move and I'm going to get the blood back in my brain, back in my limbs, because I can't pay attention. And that we can swap between sympathetic and parasympathetic at a moment's notice. I can be really busy and then I can relax. And in the beginning, it may take a little time to swap really quickly between them. And that's fine. You may sit back and relax and just kind of almost witness the blood shifting. You might close your eyes because that helps you to find that parasympathetic state. You might just lick your lips. You might just feel the fabric of your clothing. You might be more interested in sensation and gentleness and beauty, just seeing the world gently moving, the light and the shade of it. Hearing beautiful little subtle sounds of birds and the wind in the trees. You might start to look around your room and see the details and see the bits in it that maybe you should put that away, or maybe I could change that up. Looking out in the garden and seeing the objects, giving them names, and really kind of using your brain in the way that you see, kind of actively. Really hearing out for details, being forward. And so we're going to bring today's little experience to a close. If everybody could come back to the computers, and we will just go into the chat box and just write what it is that we went, something I learned, something I enjoyed, something that I might do differently tomorrow. Changing the internal environment, all of those beautiful tools that we have. Changing the external environment, recognizing that we want to be able to do both. Putting you into a parasympathetic state to go to sleep, bringing yourself up into a sympathetic state to join all the busyness and wonderfulness that's going to be part of this next little patch of our lives. What might you do differently tomorrow? And as a little piece of homework, take an experience that's coming up and be curious about how you could change the external environment and how you could change your internal environment so that you could match the experience more and it could be more enjoyable. Some things we can change in the external environment and some things we can't. And some things we can change in the internal environment and some things we can't. And how we have a bit of both. And so I will linger around if anybody has any little questions that they want to ask as well. But everybody, thank you for coming along, and I hope that has given you lots of little food for thought.